Dude,
The rain stopped.
the typical 50 and then 2 breast combo.
Yeah, typical.
I feel like you're the only guy who's ever done that double.
It didn't do it well today, that's for sure. Yeah, no, it was a rough morning. I think the worst was coming into it, really, the focus was just to do well in the 50 fly, and then kind of just swim the 200 breast as training. And then after missing the finals by 1/100th, I was like, dang, like now I gotta go for it in the breast, and I wasn't ready mentally or physically, and so did pretty terrible, but it's all right. I mean, we're in a weird position, I think, right now. We've been training pretty hard up to, so it hadn't really taken much breakout, and then I went and did F1 Austin last weekend and got sick last week, and like just been feeling all sorts of doo-doo. But it's been fun to like be here racing. The 100 IM was great day one, and so I think the setup for Worlds is going to be a fun time.
You've over the last few years, you've had quite the journey in terms of the events that you've prepared for, from like global domination in 50s to, you know, Olympics and the 2IM kind of phase, and here you are in training with a 2 breast. So like, what are you preparing for now? Obviously, short course Worlds, you've got 50s and 100s. So is your focus kind of from here on just like dialing in those events? Yeah.
So right now, like our short term up until basically December is going to be all focus on our 350s, so 50 fly breast free. And so that's kind of we're not really doing much backstroke at all. Okay. And then the only backstroke I'll do will now be, I believe I'll get the 100 IM for World Champs, and then 100 breast, 100 fly have already been secured. So a busy schedule per usual for World Champs, which I'm looking forward to. I think the body will be prepared for it come December. We've got a little bit of time. And then, you know, once that hits, it's kind of straight into the workshop, going up, building towards Fukuoka. And so we're going to be traveling a lot next year. January, we'll probably start off with the Knoxville Pro Series, and then a bunch of, I think, Westmont, and then it's overseas for Mare Nostrum later on. Might be going to Israel to race. So we'll stay busy. And that's, I think, what I've missed in this season particularly is I've had, I think it's been 2 months or so now since Duel in the Pool. And then before that was just Worlds. And so I haven't been racing a whole lot. And I don't like coming to a World Cup of all places and being like, this feels really weird. Because I'm not used to that. So.
Yeah. What's after doing the World Cup and on the tails of ISL, and obviously you've been more directly involved in ISL stuff than most swimmers have. So, like, what's your take on the FINA experience and what maybe they can learn from ISL? While, you know, TBD, but it seems unlikely that ISL comes back.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what ISL did for the sport was great in bringing a new perspective to the show. I think a lot of times most people view swimming just as like a competition. And so it's all about bringing in spectators, viewership. How do you make something more exciting? Because to be completely honest, swimming's not the most exciting sport to watch. Like I don't watch swimming. Like I watch tennis and F1 because it's exciting. Like there's personalities built, there's personas, there's prize money, there's fanfare, like all this crazy stuff. And so I think swimming's headed in the right direction, albeit slowly, but at least it's moving that way. And I think FINA's, they've made a lot of changes from it. I do think, at least from hearing like about Berlin, Toronto, I think they were doing some great things there, at least with like lights and the music and DJ type stuff. Here in the US, it's been a little different. I think it's not as much run by FINA. I think it's more USA Swimming thing. And so you see the differences to where this almost feels like a very fast pro series. Yeah. And so, you know, it's good. I think what's at least important with where we're at now is as long as USA Swimming, FINA, these NGBs and federations are taking what the swimmers are saying and our criticism to heart, it's like, then we'll start to have some positive results. But regardless, like the prize money is good. Like it's cool to see athletes walking away with some really good earnings, and you know, obviously you got to work for it, and not everyone's going to make, but that's the world of sport. And so I totally get that, and I think it's cool to just see where swimming's ultimately heading.
Do you feel like, you've been one of the swimmers who's been the most open with sharing kind of what you do behind the scenes and doing some vlogging, like obviously Cody kind of let out on that, and then, but do you feel like amongst the elite swimming community that there's a sense amongst the swimmers that they see the value in kind of showcasing that individuality and so that fans can get to know all these swimmers for more appeal?
It's hard. I think a lot of swimmers see the value but don't quite know how to act on it. So it's like knowing and delivering is two completely separate things, or like the action side of it. And so that's difficult, but I've been doing it long enough that it's like I've learned from failing essentially. And so I think there's a huge it's become very obvious that it's not only beneficial to be swimming fast, but you need to be active socially and doing all this. And it's hard because some athletes just don't want to do that, and that's not who they are, and that's totally cool. But then it's like, okay, what else can you do to bring value to a company that would want to put you on a billboard or put you in front of a crowd of people and say, hey, this is my product? And so it is tough. It's tough. Like, that's the world we live in. I mean, never did I think dancing in front of a camera would be a career for TikTok type stuff. It's like, I'm not going to do that. That's not my skill set. So for me, like, I've now started with the MA Swim Academy. Like you said, like, we're very open. And so this is a platform where I can take all of the knowledge I've learned from training, like the more technical side of things, and teach people. So it's like a swim school essentially. And then you got YouTube for fun and social, and it's like behind the scenes. So everyone can do it, but it is difficult. And I do think, Cody's in a great position with it, kind of being definitely on the tail end of his career and kind of done super competitively, but he's got all the time. So for me, I really struggle now with, I can't edit my vlogs myself. I just don't have the time. And if I start to put focus on YouTube, I take away from the performance side of swimming. And so, that's, I think, the hardest part for athletes is, one, we can't afford to have someone else do it. Yeah. And then two, it's like, in order to do well in the pool, you gotta be pretty on it all the time.
Yeah. I think do you think people misunderstand how hard you train and what USRPT is? Because I feel like in the early days, it was like, this kid just does minimal
just 25s,
50s, and I don't know if anybody's tried it, but I feel like you must have maybe the best pain tolerance of any swimmer, because it is so
maybe
hard.
Not right now, but going into the Olympics, I think the biggest compliment I've ever been paid in my life was from Ryan Murphy. We were at the Olympic camp, and he was our team captain, and we had done like some team meetings, and he stood up and we were kind of giving each other shout outs, like a team building exercise. And he stood up and he's like, I just want to shout out Michael for what he's been doing in training. And at the time, at our Olympic camp, I think I was doing almost 60 50s every single morning. And I would start 20 fly, 20 breast, and then 20 medley or 20 free. And I was holding like 28 fives in the flies, like
what sort of rest are they on?
20 seconds between each 50. And so I was cranking these out, and so it was cool to see that, because I think in my head, when you hear everyone be like, oh, like, you're not training hard enough and stuff, and like, I'm not going to these programs and seeing what they're doing, so it's like, I don't know how hard their work is compared to mine, but to see him, I know he works, like, he can't be built like he does and swim like he does without it. To see him be like, this is crazy, like, I wouldn't do that myself, I was like, it makes me feel really good. So yeah, it is. USRPT is tough. And it takes time to adapt, but there's a way for everybody to get involved, and I think that's what's cool about our method and our style of training is it's not unapproachable, it's just you have to tailor it to your needs.
I saw that it was a couple months ago now, but the Brent Rushall, the founder of USRPT, passed. Were you close with him?
Very. So I'm going to his memorial next Sunday, and so that was I think I was in Australia, actually, when he had passed. It was a few days before dueling the pool, and I had gotten the text from his family and from my family, and so it's sad to see him go, but his legacy in swimming will obviously live on, and so it's one of those things where we'll celebrate what he had done and kind of the methodology that he had passed on to us, and so do my best to pioneer it and not screw it up. But yeah, so all our thoughts go to their family.
I think you're doing a great job, man. Thanks so much for spending the time. I appreciate it.
But my pleasure. This is awesome.
Cool.